Hello, everyone, and as always, welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. Today, back into the big one, Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is our play by email challenge with our good friend Lodric. And we have instituted emergency measures, meaning Lodric's taking it to us, and we're going to have to figure out how to counter some of the things he's done. Now, last time we went through the U.S. West Coast during the setup. This is the setup for January 14th, 1942. We're playing 2-day turns. On the setup for January 12th, I went through the West Coast of the United States, out into Pearl Harbor and down into the South Pacific. This time we're going to go through Australia and up through Java, Port Moresby. We'll look around in Borneo. There's not a whole lot to do up there, but let's start with Australia. But before we get there, let's go to the stats. We'll go to the scorecard. As we like to do on these recap episodes and setup episodes. Sorties, again, 51-20. He only ran 58-41 this time. He's running very limited sorties with the carriers. They're just happen to go straight into Colombo. Anyway, so air-to-air losses. We took 35 this time. He took 11. It's now up to 316, 130. Part of that is the Flying Tigers got ripped up a little bit during our combat resolution. Destroyed on the field, 0-0. That's always good. He only took one flak loss this time. We took 12 operational losses. He took 7. That's too high. Political points. We've got 330. We're building up a little bit. I would like to buy out another big American, a regiment or two actually, and try to get those over to New Zealand, Australia, and beyond. So I will be trying to do that this turn. Japanese score, he's up to 84.51. We're at 95.69. That's a little misleading because he's sitting right outside of Singapore. That's 1,800 points. We will very quickly be behind him. Now, against a good Japanese player, you are going to fall behind in 1942. You just have to stop the losses. I mean, you can't get too far behind, or there's no coming back. Allied bases control, 531 to 305 now. Again, Singapore's a big one that he's going to get. Eventually, he will get Batavia, now Jakarta. He'll get Surabaya, some other things that have a decent amount of points. So we are going to be behind, and we're going to have to scrap our way back. Allied aircraft points lost 623 to 340. He's doing an excellent job there, considering the number of bombing missions he's running. Allied point losses, I mean, this is just devastating number of losses. A lot of that is coming in China. We're just getting run over in China a little bit. He's being more aggressive there than, well, certainly the AI, but most players, and we're going to have to counteract that as well. Allied ship sunk 310. He's showing 3. We've got fog of war, so it could be more than that. We could, have sunk a few more, but overall, that's a big number, 2152 to 23 on the sunk ships. Now, it's not completely unusual to lose, a whole lot of ships early on, but this is a little bit more than usual. He caught us out at Colombo, and that's what you really, really have to try to avoid. Now, we haven't lost any carriers, we haven't lost any capital ships other than what we lost at Pearl Harbor and Manila. So, ultimately, a lot of these are transports, little cargo ships, things like that. You can see on average it's about 7 points a ship. We're just losing a lot of them now. There's a lot of PT boats in there too, but I'm not trying to minimize it. He has done an excellent job. And we got to be a lot more careful. We already got the escort situation figured out, but now I'm starting to run some different routes of how we get cargo into certain places. Maybe we'll talk about some of that this time. Every time I'm going to try to go to a quadrant of the map, so it doesn't really lend itself to saying, well, here's the big grand strategy. It just kind of depends where we are that time. I'm not really going to go through all of this time. We did a much better job, I think, this time of minimizing losses. The Felix Rousseau had already been hit over by Colombo, so Not a whole lot we could do about that this turn. We lost a couple of PT boats out by Puerto Princesa. They were always going to go down. They did draw a lot of shells. I mean, the Japanese had to expend an incredible amount of ammunition to take out these two PT boats. We lost a 2 point cargo ship near Rangoon. Now that was he has a sub still over by Rangoon. We got most of that task force into Rangoon, but we did lose one of our little cargo ships. We sunk, or were showing we sunk, at least an Imperial Japanese Navy submarine, the I-6, out near the Hawaiian Islands. Okay, those are the kind of the most important things to look at. I feel like let's start at the southern tip of Australia and get into it. We've got some cargo ships, actually a lot of cargo ships. These had been down at New Zealand when he sallied through here. I had sent them out, dumped off a bunch of supply in New Zealand. Now they're coming back. Instead of into Sydney, we're now going into Melbourne. If that gets shut off, we're going into Adelaide. Um, I'll show when we get to Sydney, I'll show you how that may or may not change soon, but we'll get to that. So they're going to go straight back into Melbourne. They're going to auto disband. We'll put together maybe groups of 2 or 3 uh, and probably send them back out to New Zealand. Back here, we have 3 tankers. They were also down in New Zealand, so we dropped off down there at Wellington actually, and you can, it's a little safer anyway, to go into Wellington than it is to go into Auckland. Auckland quite a bit further north, and so this, the more south you can be, the further the Japanese have to go to find this stuff. So anyway, these 3 tankers, they're going to come into port and auto disband as well. So next turn we'll have to figure out exactly what we want to do with these. You see that they do have escort with them, and we're running escort pretty much with everything. Now this one did not have an escort, but we'll solve that next time. So they're going into Melbourne. Let's look at Tasmania down here at Hobart. Nothing going on. We got a base force there. I believe we're building the fortifications. We are. We're actually over a 3. Sometimes in some of these remote locations, especially in places where it's hard to get supply into. Now, Tasmania is not that hard, right? You jump over from Melbourne. But in places where it's a little harder, once you get to a 3, you may want to think about toning down the fortification build because it eats up supply, especially every level you go higher. Up in Launceston, this is the only real force we still have down here in Tasmania. It's the 22nd Motor Battalion. It's got an assault strength of 40. This is something that if we get into trouble on the mainland, can definitely jump over and help provide for the common Australian defense. Nothing going on in Burnie. We have patrol out here. I have been running small task forces out here to Tasmania. We actually need a little supply in Burnie, so when we get into Melbourne, we'll say, and also in Launceston. So when we jump over here to Melbourne, which we'll do right now, let's go and look and see, do we have any small cargo ships, little AKLs? We do. And so let's form those up. Let's get a cargo task force formed. Sure, the Wawa. I just like to say Wawa. Okay, and let's dock it. Let's load supplies, and we'll just send that across the way. We'll just bring in this one into Launceston, and then we'll have one go into Burnie as well. Do not refuel. We don't want it to refuel, and we want it to retire back to Melbourne when its task is done. And we'll do another one. Cargo, little AKL. Sure. How about that one? Done. All right. We'll dock it. We'll load supplies. We'll send it over to Burnie. Make sure it doesn't refuel and it retires back to Melbourne. Okay. How is Hobart for supply? Yeah, it's looking pretty good. 8194, that's fine. So we'll just send those 2 down, get these bases, make sure they're in decent enough supply. If we look at these other bases here, we've got Port C. You've just got the big Port C fortress. and you've got an AMC here in case he was going to mine it. If he's down here laying mines, we'll know about it. I think Geelong, nothing to do there. There's base force. We can actually come out here to Portland. We can see there's a base force. There's this big gun here. I'm actually got that on the strategic move. I'm moving that over to Melbourne. Look, if he comes and lands at Portland, which is a size 1 port, and is out here, this is where I would want him to land. Don't get up in here. We could at least rail things over and immediately kind of shut that down. So I'm going to put the big gun over here in Melbourne, where it's probably much more beneficial. All right, into some air war talk here for a minute, which is we've got level bombers out here. These are Wirraways. They're light level bombers. If we look at their pilots, so he's got 12 pilots. We actually should probably go get a couple of more pilots. If we look at the pilots, experience, naval search, right? If we look over here at ground bombing, the average is 52. And this is a problem you have early in the game, which is these Wirraways, the Hudsons, bombers like that, they can go out and run search. That's fine. Their pilots aren't very good at it. As you can see, we've got an average score of 30. What they are good at is ground bombing. Okay. And so we're kind of misfitting these for the role that they should do. Why are we doing it? Well, we don't have many search planes. We just don't have much recon or mini recon planes, and so we're having to fly some of these bombers as recon. Now, I would much rather do that with the Wirraways because they're light level bombers. They're not nearly as good as the Hudsons. The Hudsons, I feel like you want to get those back inland and train those for true ground bombing. So when the Japanese land in Australia, and they're going to in this game, it's just a matter of when because he's advanced far enough that an invasion of Australia is almost certainly on the table. When he does, we want to have a really nice bombing force that can go after him. So you want to do that with definitely with the Hudsons. We'd like to do it with the Wirraways, but we just don't have enough bombers or enough, I'm sorry, search recon aircraft right now to do it. So we're going to keep doing this with the Wirraways. Just make sure nothing is coming through here. Now, another problem with the Wirraways is they don't have much of a range, but it's better than nothing. So we're going to run that. Let's look at. Let's make sure here 50. Oh, I was going to get a few new pilots for this mission. For this, when we get the replacement pilots here, I'm just going to grab a couple. We're going to do any so that it takes kind of the least good pilots. You don't want to do the replacement pilots or the reserve pool where you have better pilots. You would rather save them for someplace a little more important. Now these guys come on, they'll probably be the ones right at the bottom. Well, these guys are so bad at this that they're actually not. They're kind of right in the middle. When they come on, they're going to be very low experience and usually very low at what you're doing. You're taking them out of the training pool, right? So essentially, you want to, get a few pilots in here, put them in here, train them up doing naval search in a place where maybe it doesn't matter quite as much. Okay. Um, the Wawa we just set up. We've got the PJ Swan. It's going to actually merge with the task force. Which task force is it merging with? Well, it's merging with 564. Where is that? 433, 319. Hmm. Oh, I know where it is. Hold on. Let's get off that. Is it here? No. Where is Task Force 564? Well, I don't really want to go search for it that much. I'll tell you, that can take some time. Oh, I think it might be. No, it's not that one either. Okay, I'm going to quit guessing. I put that order in. I'm going to assume it's okay. He'll go merge with that. Um, we're loading supplies with the Kinder. This is the other one that's going down here. This one's going to Bernie. This one's going to Lawson. And then we've got an AMC. Okay, that's all good. If we look at our ground forces now, this 12th Australian Brigade was really ticketed probably in a normal game for me up to Port Moresby. We're not going to get any more troops up into Port Moresby, and if you do, you're just sending them up there to get captured eventually or killed. So we're just going to leave this here. I'm not going to spend the points to turn it over to Australian Command. One Australian Corps, I usually have everything that's up in the islands. One Australian Corps, so that's why it is this right now. I'm just going to leave it here. We've only got 147 in the garrison, but we have more coming this way. I'm also going to bring American troops into Melbourne. I'm bringing a lot of American troops over to Australia because we are going to have to withstand a pretty large Japanese invasion. So these guys are all where they should be. That's kind of that. I don't think there's anything much more to say about Melbourne. If we look at Adelaide, we've got these dive bombers, and this brings up another point. So the American dive bombers over here, they're attached to ABDA for now. We'll eventually change that, but I don't want to spend the points right now. They have very low experience, and if we look at their pilots, what are we, training them up for? Naval bombing. All right, so these dive bombers, you're going to need them over here on the coast as he's trying to invade Australia. So we've got to get these going as far as training. I've got them trained. I mean, I say get them going. I've got them training 100%, 8,000 feet, no range, train naval attack. We need more naval attack. Now, why do I have them way over here in Adelaide? Well, because we don't have any, or we haven't had any cap cover over the big Australian cities. We do now, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so those guys are training in Adelaide, and we have another group of dive bombers, 13 of them. Here we had 12. We've got another group of dive bombers. If we look at the pilots, experience, naval bombing, defense. This is what we want them doing. We're training on naval attacks, so they're training up naval bombing. They're getting better, but it takes a while, and we need these to be ready to go by the time he gets here. All right. That's fine. Well, I'm just leaving this one force, assault strength 20 over here in Adelaide. You certainly don't want to lose Adelaide. How many points is Adelaide even worth? I don't even know. 650 to Japan. So, that'd be a logistical nightmare for him. But hey, who knows? Oh, this may be the task force we're looking for. Dutch Task Force 433. These are a bunch of little APs. They're all Dutch. I'm going to bring them into Melbourne just in case we want to send anything out somewhere. When I say anything, I'm talking, troops. If we want to send troops somewhere, or more likely like AA, artillery, things like that, we'll at least have some small transports we can do that with. So that's really it for Adelaide. We've got one infantry unit in there, some engineers, and we've got the fortress here. Okay. We've also got this, the Kunda, that just dropped off out here at Kingscote, Kangaroo Island. Some supply is coming back into Adelaide. Up at Port Augusta, we've got a lot of planes up here, and this is what I was talking about. So if we look at Port Augusta, we've got aviation support of 55, aviation support required of 43. So we've got 43 planes here. We're well within our kind of, parameters there. What do I have out here? Well, I brought the Hudsons, okay, and we're training them for ground attack. And if we look at the pilots, these guys are actually not bad. I mean, they're getting there. You really want them to be up to 65 or 70 before you consider them actually, good pilots. But they're getting there. They're getting there, and you can see their experience is a little bit low, but they're getting there. There's 6 planes here, 6 pilots. Let's request a veteran and see how that works. You go into the reserve pool here. You see we have 9 bomber pilots. Experience, air, naval bomb, naval search, ground bomb. Okay, so we would want to put a guy that's really good at ground bombing. Shocker, right? So he's in the bomber reserve. They need another pilot. Let's just go get this guy. And now he's going to be in this group. He'll transfer in here next time. Because they need a few extra. We could also go get some innies, or we could get replacement, reserve, or track on. Let's do I don't really want it to be innies. Let's go reserve. Let's get 2 pilots. All right. And then next time we'll have. Now we do have 8 pilots. Okay, let's go back. Ground bombing. Okay, so these guys were pretty good. They came in here somewhere in the middle. I've got this sorted by experience, if you're wondering. So they came in here in the middle, and now they're going to have 9 pilots when the other one comes out. And we're just going to train, 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 and get these guys as good as they can be for when the Japanese come. We'll do the same here. Reserve, get 2 pilots, 8. You can also see their average experience change after you bring those pilots in. And again, these are Hudsons, so we're doing ground attack. That's what they're best at, and that's what we're training their pilots to do for the eventual Japanese invasion. Training ground attack, training ground attack. Now, this would allow us to get a lot of pilots. We don't need that many pilots, so we're not going to do that. We could, put the innies all in this one group and start training up even more bomber pilots, but I think we're all right. The American planes that are here, what are these American planes? All B-17s. They're all in this what is that, 13th Bomber Command. These all came out of the Philippines, I believe. We got them down here. The pilots, if you look at it, we're training them up on ground bombing. They're already at a level 60 on average. Very good, very good. Their experience isn't great, but they're actually quite skilled at ground bombing. And so we're just training them up out here. They're all training. Now, these you could run certainly at a much higher altitude because B-17s are usually going to be coming in much higher. But for these, I'm probably going to use them to do tactical bombing on the ground. Not that that's, it's kind of using a blunt instrument with the B-17. But once Australia gets invaded, we're going to try to have these guys all trained up and bring the fire and the fury. These pilots are actually quite good. 61 on the experience, ground bombing. They're getting trained up on that. 6 pilots. We need 3. We actually have a plane in reserve. Let's get that moved to the. Oh, that can only be in 3. Okay. Well, we'll keep one in reserve then. Okay, so I've got a lot of my training happening back here at Port Augusta. What do we have in here? No ships in port. What do we have still in Adelaide? We have 10 ships in port. Let's go back and look at that really quickly. What do we have? We have some of the Australian transports. We also have 3 tenders. So we've got the bigger transports. Should we need them, we've got them essentially hiding in reserve here at Adelaide. So I've got those backed up there. All right. So that's kind of all of this. Let's go to Wagga Wagga, or Wagga Wagga. It's probably Wagga Wagga, right? At Wagga Wagga, training transport. It'd be nice to have some pilots that are good at transport. Now, these guys are not good at all. I've got them off the coast back here. You hope he's not going to fly a mission into Wagga Wagga or Wagga Wagga, whichever it is. So I've just got them a little bit off the coast. You don't want them in Sydney. They can get hit, kind of be collateral damage. So I've just got them here in the center for transport training. We don't, the only thing I would use transport for now is potentially getting something over to Port Moresby, but I'm not really inclined to do that. Canberra, the capital, we've just got engineers out there. We got the cavalry group in Port Kembla. That's fine. They're only sitting here to fill up the base, so we can't just land here unopposed. And what's more likely is they'll filter into Sydney and help in the defense of Sydney. We've also got more armor coming down here. This is a strategic move. 77 on the assault strength. That is ticketed for Brisbane eventually. Let's look at Sydney. At Sydney, we've got a lot of things, but one real thing to talk about. So we've got a garrison strength of 312 right now. What is it up at Brisbane? The further north I go, the more assault strength I like to have. They've already got 483, so this guy would put them up to 550 or so. Tell you what, we're just going to have him stop in Sydney to kind of even that up a little bit. So we'll just put that into Sydney and we'll set his that he's preparing for Sydney. If he lands up here by Brisbane, those armored units we can get out of here in a hurry. and get them wherever the point of attack is. Now, some people would say, keep them out here like at Tamworth or something like that. But Sydney's fine as well. I mean, you may as well have it in a more important place. It's not like there's any potential he's landing at Tamworth. That's physically impossible unless it's airborne, right? So we may as well have it at a place, excuse me, where he may land. So let's put that into Sydney. We'll look at Sydney really quickly. We've now got 14 ships in port here. We've got a lot of little AKLs and we've got some big AKs. The big AKs we're going to put into a task force, a cargo task force. All right. And we'll put that with a destroyer. We'll actually put an AM in there potentially. What do I say potentially? I just did it. 6,000, 6,000, 6,000, 6,000. Let's get them all. Done. All right, let's dock and let's load supplies. Now, the only reason I have these cargo ships in Sydney now, and always remember this timing, as you start to get American fighters finally over here in the major Australian cities. So we actually do have cap here, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So when that's done, we're going to run that down to Wellington, and we're not going to go that way. We're going to do waypoints. Okay. And let's actually go just straight down and around. All right, back. We're not going to refuel these guys when they get out to Wellington. We're just going to have them take a bunch of supply out there. All right, now that we may have them actually retire back towards Melbourne, but if the coast is clear, then we'll sneak them right back up into Sydney if we can. Okay, so now we've actually got some cargo, some cargo ships that are back at Sydney. I had evacuated them all the way around to Adelaide when his carriers were in the area, but now we got them back and we're going to load them up. Okay, this AKL is here. Just looking at this one more time. The Wyala, yeah, it has an anti-sub of 4, so we're going to take that along for the ride. Um, these two little AKLs here, let's dock them. Let's load supply. As you can see, we've got a lot of supply, not a whole lot of fuel necessarily at Sydney. So where do we want these to go? Well, we could go out to Nemaya. It's a possibility. Brisbane actually has not that great a supply situation. How's Rockhampton? Not that great either. A lot of this should be flowing up the railways. That hasn't completely, kicked up to full value yet. Um, how's Nomaya for supplies? 13,000. Okay, that's pretty good. How? I could run them out to Australia, or I'm sorry, New Zealand. I could run them over to Suva. What I'm trying to do with these little AKLs too, to some extent, is almost use them like recon. Uh, I'd rather lose those two 1-point ships. You know what? Let's take these up to Bundaberg. Do I dare do that though? Let's right click that. Let's just load these up and let these sit here for a turn. I'll figure out what to do with them later. Let's look here. Let's look at the type of unit. Turn that around, put the command. Oh, it doesn't put the commands in. It actually puts them in alphabetical order. Okay, I'll get used to that then. AA, we've got an AA unit down here. You can see it right there. 4th Australian Light, 2 4th Armored. We've got artillery here. We've got some CD Coast art artillery, North Fort, Banks Fort. Okay, we've got some engineers, some head. This all looks like a good mix here. We've got a full division with 204 AV. We're bringing that armor in. That'll put us almost up to, 450, almost 500. We've got the Koi here. Now, these guys can get off the coast. They don't need to be bought out. Now, this Koi, usually you'd put them up, kind of up in the Papua New Guinea, maybe over into Espirito Santo, something like that. We haven't been able to do that yet. I'm tempted to take them over to Nomaya though, if we had any transports, and we don't. So what I want to do then, and let's see how much that group costs. 229 on the total load cost. They give you a grand total of 10 assault strength. Let's see what these transports look like. The little ones that we just have stashed here. I thought we had stashed here. I thought we had. Where are they? Hold on. Didn't I just look at these? Transport. Let's see what we find. Actually, I'm not seeing them. Were they all the way up in Adelaide? Okay. Let's go look up here. Yeah, these are the bigger ones though, I thought. I thought that we had didn't I was just talking about these. Not seeing them though. APs. Maybe I just got confused with these little AKs. Now I've got all of our kind of bigger capital ships around here. I'm not sure it's the greatest idea. I probably should have him back at Adelaide, but we should know if he's coming down the coast pretty early. All right, well, let's just take one of the small, or shoot, it's driving me crazy. I could have sworn I saw them, but I guess they are all back here. All right, well, let's go get them, or get one of them. We only need one. He can certainly take 200. Yep, he can. We're just going to send the Marinda around to go pick that up. Marinda, got it, done. All right, go around to Sydney and we'll have it remain on station so it doesn't retire when it gets over there. We'll just say remain on station and we'll have it pick up that koi group. So let's go back to Sydney very quickly and go down to our troops. There, wrong one. This koi group, let's put them in strategic move so they're ready to go. And I think I may take them out to Nomaya. We don't have much out here now. Yeah, it'll be a little risky, but it's a 10 point or it's a 10 assault strength unit, and it's essentially a nothing transport. So let's do it. Let's get moving. All right, let's talk about the air, which is really the most important thing. We got 25 Warhawks that were deposited out here for us. Well, we got a lot more than that. We got 75 total. If we look, their average experience is 28. That's not good. So we're going to have to do them 30 cap, 40 train. Also, let's go look at the pilots themselves. If we go back, we've got 33 pilots out here, 25 planes. Let's go look at the pilots because one thing that you can do is release the least experienced and bring in new pilots that have more experience. But really, none of these guys is that good. If you look at their air to air, it's 33, their experience is 32. These guys just have got to get trained up and they've got to do it in a hurry because we need them to fly cap. So how do you deal with that? Well, they're going to get fatigued, certainly. Now, luckily, there's 33 pilots right now for 14 ready planes. We will have 25, though. They are going to run 30 cap, 40 train. Now, we'll watch their fatigue, not let it get over 15. We'll back these things off as they get there. But because of this, you also have to set the maximum range to 5. Our operational losses are going to go up, certainly. Now, one thing we could do is we could take the cap off. Maybe this is what I'll do. We'll turn the training up to 60 and we'll set that on 0. If we see anything coming down the coast, though, we've got to turn on the cap. And if they go up and get ripped up, so be. I mean, there's nothing you can do. We've got to do, get some cap up. Though otherwise they'll just get killed on the field. So, kind of what difference does it make? Again, we're away bombers. That's what we're doing to run our search. It's not ideal. If we look at their pilots, they're much better ground bombers from the start than they are at naval search. Oh well, we need some naval search, and we just don't have enough planes to do it. Now we do have more recon up at Darwin, and maybe we'll bring something down here. But for now, we're just going to run that. Uh, Also, the dive bombers we could put over here, but I'm not going to do that because they're kind of helpless right now. They're not going to do a good job. We got to just keep training. Let's go up to Brisbane. At Brisbane, we've got 483. That's looking good. Now I've got a couple of things on strat here. We've got artillery out here, medium regiment, first motor brigade. Let's actually take that off of reinforce and upgrade defend at target. We've also got this base force that I originally wanted to send out to Luganville. We have not had a chance to do that because of his damn carriers. Okay, Southwest Pacific. We've got that on strat. Australian Command. Unfortunately, this just isn't going to, be able to go out. We brought it in here. We need all the defense of the Australian homeland we can get because ultimately that's where the war is coming. Let's go back there. So we took him off strat. We've also got the 2nd Australian Brigade, Cavalry Brigade on strat. Let me look and see, were they ticketed for anywhere else? No. Okay, so they've just arrived here. Combat at target. Let's actually keep him on strat. And I'm going to bring one of these little transports around. And if we have a chance, we'll get out here and put a base force down there. Now, if we're not able to get anything else out, we're probably just wasting that. But let's go ahead and bring one around anyway. Let's find one that's the least amount of points. That's 8 points. Well, that's what all of these are going to be. Mercure is faster, but it's only 8 points. So let's go get the Mercure done. All right. And we're going to bring that all the way around to Brisbane. We'll run that as a coastal. So go up here, run it coastal. It already kind of was, but we'll really hug the coast with this thing and try to get it over here and pick up that base force. All right, back to Brisbane. This is where all of the planes originally came in. As you can see, I've got dive bombers over here right now. We don't want them here. There's 15 total in this group. Let's actually click on it again. Train 100, training, naval attack. And if we look at the pilots, naval bombing, you can see they're only at a 33, 34 experience overall. I mean, our top pilots only got 37 experience, our top naval bomber, 43. That is not good enough. So let's transfer them away from here, actually. Let's look at support, sort by that. They could go to Sydney. What's the point of that? Melbourne, they could go to Port Augusta, but that's almost full. Townsville's pretty full. They could go to Canberra. That's an idea. They could also go over to Adelaide with some of the other dive bombers. Let's send them over to Adelaide, that group of them. All right. So they're over there. And then these dive bombers are training naval attack. Let's look at the pilots. Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, their lieutenant commander's got a 16 for naval bombing. As you can see, they come on better as ground bombers, but we need these dive bombers, these banshees, whatever the case, whatever we've got out here, we need them to become naval bombers because that's what they're really going to be used for, these dive bombers. We could use them as ground bombers, but really over here in Australia, I think this is the way to go. Support. Now we can see at Adelaide, we're at 42 of 46. We don't have any in Canberra. We could actually put more planes in Wagga Wagga. Let's do that. We'll put these guys in Wagga Wagga. They've got enough support to handle it, and they will be back there training. Also, an advantage of Wagga Wagga is the cap does get out over that. So if it were to just get bombed by carriers, we at least would have some cap over the top of it, as opposed to some of these back here. But they're far more well hidden, right? So again, we've got fighters out here. We're going to take the cap off. We're going to knock down the range Okay, we're going to put the training to 60. Come on, guys. Come on. We've got 34 experience, 34 air to air out here. They have got to build up as fast as can be. Done. All right. These forces, we just kind of looked at them. We've got two on strat, that base force that may go. This first medium artillery regiment. I actually take that off. I think that's fine. We'll leave it right here. Now that's something you could put out on one of the islands. That I'm not even thinking about these islands really. I'm tempted to put a base force out, at Luganville or something like that, but really I'm not going to stock these up. We're not in good enough position to do that. I'm more worried about the Australian homeland. Bundaberg, we've got more level bombers. This time Hudson's running recon. I don't like that. I've never liked it. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to transfer these guys. We're going to put them on training 100% for ground attack. All right. We're going to put their maximum range at 0 and let's transfer. And these are other guys that we could potentially put at Wagga Wagga or Wagga Wagga. Let's do it. Let's put them there. All right. Trying to get all of these bombers and things we're going to need later in here and training as fast as they can. With the fighters, we don't really have that luxury. We've got to keep them in the big urban areas, but we're going to train them until we don't, it's not possible to train them. We've got more Hudsons here. This is 7. I'm just going to stop searching this area, at least with these guys. So let's take that off search. All right, let's take their range off. Let's put them on training, 100, ground attack. Let's make sure. Now, early in the game, like I said, when he was coming down here with carriers, we needed to have something up doing search, but we don't really need that. Well, that's not true. We need it. We just really need these guys to get better. Again, Wagga Wagga, we'll send it there. All right, awesome. Now, let's actually do something really quickly. Rockhampton has 8 aviation support. It has a level 3 airfield. Bundaberg has a level 2, and it's got 8 aviation support. All right, so I'd rather have them at Rockhampton. I'm going to go up here to Darwin because I've got a lot of American patrol planes. Um, we've got 9, 6, 7. All right. We've got 58 experience, 59 experience, 59. Let's take these guys. They've got a massive maximum range. Transfer to base, and we'll put those in Rockhampton to actually run patrols. Um, these guys can go everywhere but Australia. Now we got to get all the way down to the 8s. Rockhampton. All right. So they're going to be in Rockhampton. I actually think this search pattern works. So we've got 7 of them down there now. So we'll go down to Rockhampton. That looks pretty good to me, right? I mean, I guess maybe we would. No, this looks fine because I would want to know if anything's coming here or through here. So they're out of Rockhampton. We've got a patrol there now. Perfect. All right, and they could actually, let's see, 0 to 70. That's perfect. Okay, and they're going out to their maximum range 19. So these Catalinas, excellent running these patrols. Let's look at their pilots and see their naval search scores. You can see, they're a 58 and a 58. That's not really like good, but relatively speaking, compared to everything else we have, that looks great. But you really want things up in the 60s, certainly, once you get into the war much. But they'll continue to improve. Um, so back to Brisbane just for a second. We have no ships in port. We've got fighters here. We've got the level bombers, but I could take one of those other groups out of here or out of there, I should say, and maybe that's what we'll do. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it's very nice to have patrols up in Darwin, but it's not the end of the world. Can these get down to Brisbane? That's 9. I'll leave 9 up here. They have a bigger search area. We'll take the 6. We won't be looking that way anymore. As you can see, he came down here to Broome to just try to sweep this port. Luckily, we didn't have anything there. They're all over in Port Hedland, but that's a different story. We'll get to that. Um, let's transfer these guys down to Brisbane, and we'll get some real patrols going on down there. Batavia, uh, where is Brisbane? Is he not in the right command? Well, it's Asiatic Fleet. Oh, there's Brit. My goodness, I'm going blind. All right, so now they're in Brisbane. Now let's go down to Brisbane, and we'll take those Weiraways, the bombers here. Now let's look at the pilots because they've been doing search. They're actually not that bad at it now. Well, that's not true. They're horrible. They're 35, but they're not as bad as they were. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's transfer them then, and we're going to take this off. We're going to train them. We're going to train them for ground attack. All right, we'll take that off, and we'll train them at 100%. And let's transfer them over to, is this another Wagga Wagga group? This is a lot of planes, by the way. It's like 17 planes. Yep, perfect. In you go. So we got a lot of bombers at Wagga Wagga. So now at Brisbane, we've got fighters training as hard as they can. And we've now got this group that we need to change their search patterns, certainly. Let's try 30 to 90. See how that looks. Exit. Perfect. All right, so now we've got coming out of Rockhampton up this way. Now we got this way. These search planes are so important. I know a lot of people, I don't want to say overlook them, but are like, well, this isn't the most exciting part of the game. I love this stuff, right? I mean, we're trying to figure out how to figure out where he is, and it's you need that information. I've been scared to go into Suva now for about 5 straight turns because I have no idea where he may be, and we need all the information we can get. So Brisbane, we'll put that there. It would be nice to have you know, more patrol planes like this, more Catalinas down here in the islands, places like Suva and Nomaya, and we may eventually transfer them out over there in a turn or two. All right, so the guys we have left in Darwin, I think this looks pretty good. We can kind of see anything that might be trying to come down here. What's the search pattern? 290 to 20, we've got 9 planes. We can certainly do bigger than that, right? No, not really. Not really. But I am going to make it 300 to 30 because I'm OCD. There we go. All right, now we're covering pretty much everything I feel like we need to cover. We'll come talk about Darwin here in a little bit. We've got the fighters here in Brisbane. As we come to Bundaberg, we've got one of those motorized or armored units that can move quickly, we hope. We've got one of those in Bowen. In Rockhampton, we've got the patrol now. We've got one of those units, but we've also got more. I've got a pretty, decent force here at Rockhampton. Rockhampton's very important. It's a level, potential level 6 port, seven port, and a 10 airfield, 9 airfield. So you got to watch this. It's a good place for the Japanese to land potentially. Potentially, we've got all kinds of motorized units that could get there in a hurry. We hope. All of these guys should be on combat defend at target. All right, let's go to Townsville. Townsville, we got a lot of stuff here, but it's not perfect. It's not set up that well. These fighters just came in here. They are damaged. They're just sitting on the airfield, which is dangerous. We're going to take that off of cap. Now, these guys, we got to be ready at a moment's notice to change them over to cap. As you can see, 28 average experience. That's not good. We've got 28 pilots, 17 planes. They've got to assemble out here. So we're training. Let's put training 100. Is that how I did the other ones, or did I not do those right? You guys should yell in the comments. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Let's put these guys up at training 100. I don't know why I did that. You guys were, somebody was probably screaming. Um, yeah, we don't want it to be a patrol level. We want it to be a straight up train. Okay, there we go. Anything that gets close, the minute we detect that he's got anything coming this way, we have got to be ready to change this. All right, what kind of bombers do we have out here? We have Hudsons. We've got 7 of them. We're going to take that off search. We're going to put that on train. I'm going to start training up all of these because it's going to come down to a lot of bombing. So let's do ground attack. Let's transfer to a base that has support that is good for training. 64, not Brisbane. None of these. You don't want them to be out on the coast. They could go all the way back to Port Augusta. That seems fine to me. Let's send them all the way back there. So they're into Port Augusta. And then we have more Hudsons. We're going to do the same with that. We'll actually put them on training, ground attack, train them up at 100 level, maximum range. Let's transfer to a base because we've got float planes down here. We'll get to that in a minute. We could go into Canberra. That's fine. We'll put these guys into Canberra. So Wagga Wagga, Canberra, Port Augusta, Adelaide. That's where a lot of our training's going on. These Wirraways, they don't have enough of a range to really make a difference out here. So let's train those up. 100, 6-0, train ground attack. Let's transfer those back. They'll probably go into the capital as well. Oh, oh, these just got here. Got it. Um, well, oh, I want to put those. Alice Springs? Probably not. Do I want them all the way back in Adelaide? What's their maximum range? Could they even get back over here? They really couldn't. Shoot. Interesting. Let's look at this one more time. Now, there are places we can get without railing them, but none of them are particularly appealing. Um, you know what? I guess these guys. I don't want to leave them here, though. Brisbane, Bathurst, Wagga Wagga. It's already got 38. Portland, Port Augusta. Well, they can go all the way to Port Augusta. Let's put them in there. Okay, fighters. We got the same deal. All right, or we just talked about that. Float planes. We've got 4 now. What kind of search do they have going on? That's not great. We need a better search out of Townsville. We're gonna have to find it from somewhere. We're gonna have to bring some uh, Oh, you know what? I think we have something in Moresby that could help, and we do. We've got 4 Catalinas there, 4 Catalinas. We don't have to run all of this. Oh, and we've got these transport. Well, I'm using them as transports. Let's take one of these groups and run it out of Townsville. I kind of like that search for Townsville anyway. So let's have it be these guys. Support. I don't think I'm going to have to buy these out. I certainly hope not. Townsville. There's Townsville. All right, let's do that. Great. And if we exit out of that, okay, we want to kind of turn that a little bit. Now we've only got 4 planes running 50 to 90. Whoops. Let's keep that on 60. Let's go 70 to 110. Oh, shit. Wrong group. All right, well, let's back that up. 50, 90. These are the guys that are still over here. Let's go down to the guys in Townsville. All right, there we go. 270 to, I don't know, 100? What's that look like? Nah, it's too far over. Let's do 50 to 80. Perfect. All right. Now we can see anything coming through that straight. 50, 90. This got such a short range, but it's better than nothing, I guess. All right, so that's running there. We've got the fighters on train. All right, at Townsville, we've got a lot of action here. I've also got these actually to set to replace and also upgrade. I've got the 39th Australian Battalion that we were originally going to send up to Moresby. I've kind of rethought that a little bit. We're just going to kind of sit here. I've also got a base force that I'm going to send to Cookton. And I'll tell you why. Most of these fighters we're getting have a maximum range, so how far they can fly to transfer bases, of 14. Well, they can't make it from Townsville to Port Moresby, but they can from Cookton or Cooktown, whichever one it is. I'm sorry, people have told me different, whether it's Cookton or Cooktown. So anyway, I'm going to get a base force up to Cookton. That's how I'm going to say it. And that way, if we want to transfer fighters over to Moresby, we can. All right, so one last look at Townsville. It's got a lot of garrison up here, 486. Most of that's in combat and where it should be, although we got a couple of battalions here that we had thought about going and putting together as the 30th Australian Brigade up in Port Moresby. Well, we haven't done that yet. Um, Fighter, float paint. Okay, that all looks good. We've got no ships in port at Cons. We've got patrol. So we do have some American Catalinas here. They're doing a 60, 60 through 90, so they're looking this way as well. Look, that looks good to me. We've got level bombers. We've got Weiraways. Okay, 12 of these. No, we're going to actually put these back into training for ground attack. 100, 0, transfer to a base. Where do we want to go with these? Sydney, no. Melbourne, Geelong. We could go down to Geelong. It's got 16 support. We're starting to fill up at places like Port Augusta and Adelaide. This is 12 planes. We could also rail them all the way to Perth. Let's not do that though. Waga's too tight. Geelong. Geelong it is. All right, we'll send them there to train. So we've got these are float patrol. They've got a pretty good range. I've actually been doing supply transport with them out to Port Moresby though. Um, yeah, I'm going to keep it that way. I'm trying to get some supply out there in unconventional means. I had this group out at Cookton. Or Cooktown. I'm actually bringing it back to Cairns. Port Moresby. All right, we'll start that in a minute. I'm going to take